Thank you for tuning in to another episode of WGC Fits. Today, we are going to be going over a Trackman journey with Captain Ballspeed here. We're going to see what happens.
All right, AJ, let's go over the numbers.
All right, numbers. I
What's
like
club
numbers.
speed?
How fast you swing?
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
So if I swing this at 95 miles an hour, it should show up?
It should. You're a little fast there.
97, I'm sorry. So club speed is how fast you swing the club, right?
Correct.
Okay. What's attack angle?
Attack angle is going to be the angle at which you are actually coming in to make impact.
Okay. And that's when I hit the ball.
Correct. Right when we're making
When we're
impact.
making contact. Okay. And that's that blue line on the right?
Yeah, it is kind of measured in that blue line on the top.
Cool. Those are two pretty easy ones, right?
Those are very common, I would say.
Okay. Let's do club path, face angle, and face to path. I feel like those three kind of go in line together.
They go hand in hand. This is one that people miss sometimes.
Yes.
So let's take it into account from a righty like yourself.
That is me.
Club path is going to be essentially the direction that the path is moving, measured pretty much effectively right at impact and right past impact.
Yes.
Okay. Face angle is going to be the measurement of the face in terms of open and closed. Again, essentially kind of right at impact, right? And then face to path, that is essentially going to be a comparison between face at impact compared to path.
Yes. So that one, I swung 8 degrees left, right?
You got that moving pretty left, yeah.
What?
7.8 degrees left, your face was 3.4 degrees closed, and your face to path is positive 4.4.
But people get this confused because face angle's negative, but the face to path is positive.
Correct, because again, the face to path is going to be a comparison between face angle coming through impact, right, with the comparison of our actual path.
Yes.
So you can be open to path or closed to path.
Basically,
that was quite open to path.
I had to hit it straight, so...
Yeah.
All right, let's do dynamic loft and spin loft, because these numbers kind of get confused as well.
These are interesting questions at this point. Okay. Dynamic loft is going to be a measurement of loft at impact. Pretty simple.
Meaning
right?
the club's loft at impact.
Correct, because very rarely, in all honesty, if it was in this window, it wouldn't be a very good hit if you're coming in with the actual measured loft of the golf club.
Which for me is 32 degrees.
Correct.
So I am taking 11 degrees off this thing.
Where are we at? This is
13.
different than my normal setup. Yes, you are.
I'm taking 13
you're
degrees.
always a little bit more in that dynamic loft window than you should be,
Meaning
because
this.
you kind of like to get a little squeezy with it.
Like this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're de-lofting the club, essentially.
Yes.
Now, spin loft is interesting.
Isn't that dynamic loft with the angle of attack included?
Effectively, yeah. What spin loft is effectively is, let's take angle of attack.
Yes, I see.
Compared to static lofted address, and then essentially measure how it adjusts, right? Now, this creates an arbitrary number, let's say. I actually like to look at spin loft almost a little bit different. Give me your golf club real quick.
Do you want the two things?
Any sticks, yeah, it doesn't matter, right? How I like to look at spin loft when I am comparing it for people is essentially we have a graph that kind of looks like this, right? And what we have here is essentially dynamic loft at impact, or I should say static loft at address versus dynamic loft at impact. And if it's bigger, right, essentially the ball is going to spin more. If it's smaller, the ball is going to spin less, okay? We're looking for that happy medium, obviously.
Based on the golf club.
Based on the club and based on the swing that the golfer has.
So if you have a driver, you want it matching, basically.
I would like to see it fairly close, right? I mean, I never want it to be matching, right? I would like to see it fairly close, though, right? Let's say arbitrary numbers. If you have a 9-degree driver, I wouldn't mind seeing with angle of attack coming in, having your dynamic loft be somewhere in the realm of, let's say, 12, right? That would be a pretty good, pretty standard hit, I would say, right? Now, if you come in with a 9-degree driver and you're presenting, 18 degrees aloft, with the driver,
Yeah.
adds some issues because that's going to be
high spinny
quite a big spin loft, right? So spin loft is an interesting one, but very important and something that you should really pay attention to. And if you're in a fitting, ask your fitter about. It's a pretty important one that paints a pretty good picture for us when we're actually doing a fitting.
Yeah. So let's go back to actually club path here because can you put the tracer up actually on the left?
On the left,
yeah. So that is how you hit a fade.
That is how you hit a
club
fade.
path going left and
face
the face
open.
slightly open. Right. And this is how you hit a nice little draw.
Oh, he's putting himself on the test here.
I hit it straight-ish. It fell left.
Okay, no, that's a textbook draw. We got a path that's moving out to the right.
Very much.
We're going to have a face to path that is slightly closed comparatively.
So that is how you hit a fade and a draw, people. What's the next number? So swing plane. This Trackman actually has a 3D motion. You can move it, correct?
Correct. Yep. And we can see that the swing plane measurement is essentially a measure in degrees of
the shaft.
Essentially the shaft coming in and where you're at making impact in comparison to low point almost.
Yes. From here to here.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's easy. And then swing direction and low point, I believe, are tied together.
Yeah, because swing direction is going to talk a little bit about, like we said, in to out, out to in, that kind of thing. And then low point obviously being where we're going to hit that apex in the actual plane.
The bottom of the plane.
Correct. And I use the term apex. I know that's technically not what you'd want to use, but it makes sense to people, right? It's the apex of the bottom of the swing, and then that's where we kind of want to have our impact.
If you turn it in the 3D version, you can actually see where it shows impact or low point. So that line is my low point.
Right here. Yep.
Yes.
So there we go.
And then impact, offset, and height's pretty self-explanatory. That's where I hit the club on the ball.
Where we're actually making contact, yes.
Can you show impact spot? I'll just put that on there. Location? Yeah, sure. I healed it pretty bad. You know, I like to shank it every now and then.
Well, and when you're coming in from the inside like that, you almost can't not do that.
Yeah, sure.
You specifically, I should say.
It was close. I felt it.
And then the last thing on your dynamic lie.
Yep, just where the hosel, the angle of the hosel is correct.
Effectively, I like to look at it as this is going to be something that's going to change, and it's taking into account what the club is or what an average of the club would be based on what you're doing at delivery, right? And that's an important part of it. So again, important tools that kind of help us get to what the club spec should look like, let's say.
If you need it flat or
based on, again, most important part, what your swing is actually doing.
Yeah.
Right? What your tendencies are, let's say.
Cool. Let's switch to ball data. All right, Agent, what on earth is ball speed?
So ball speed is effectively how fast the ball is moving, and it can be a window into how good your strike really is when we look at the next number, which we'll get to.
Okay.
Which we can tie in right now, being smash factor.
So that ball was at 88.7.
Ball was moving at 88.7.
Yes, which is pretty low for me.
Pretty low.
We just had fun.
But it was just a little chippy one, right? We know that in terms of what that could have done based on what your measured swing was, because Trackman measures what your swing input is. Yeah. Your smash factor suggests that you struck that well in the middle,
right in the middle,
meaning that your ball speed potential was quite high.
Yeah, smash factor being 1.41.
Yep, smash factor for an iron, typically what I'm looking for is anything really north of 1.3. Yeah. 1.3 to 1.37. Typically, that's a pretty good showing of something that's struck pretty well.
I've noticed that with clubs that have less tech in them, you get a less smash factor because normally there's more loft, so you're going to have less ball speed.
And when we say less tech, we could kind of use that another term, blade, little small cavity back type club. There's only so much you can do with a chunk of metal.
Correct.
Right? Clubs that are kind of more in that
traditional
tech window, right? Yes. They will be able to produce technically a little more ball speed. Like, I can go and build a club real quick that we'd be able to have you hit.
1.45
I could probably get to 1.45 pretty easily in ball speed.
I think the TI Fusion would get me there.
I think the Fusion could. I think a T200 could, right? Yeah. Forge Tech could. An i530 could.
Yeah.
An i530 might get you to 1.5. just really long.
All right.
But you understand smash factor, ball speed, how they connect.
So let's do launch angle and launch direction. Pretty self-explanatory.
Again, direction, easiest way to look at this, negatives and positives depending on kind of right-handed or left-handed. So for you, slightly negative, slightly left. It's okay.
That's what I like.
And we see that it's actually launching slightly left to center. Launch angle, that's a good one because launch angle is going to talk about essentially the measured degree of the ball launching after impact. Now, this is one of those first numbers when we're doing a fitting that's actually pretty telling on terms of what your delivery is.
Yeah.
So it can be too high or too low, obviously, right? And when we're too high or we're too low, it's going to really be the first thing that we're going to notice that's going to throw off the rest of the numbers in kind of the synopsis of whether or not that was an efficient golf shot or not, right? 21 degrees, if this would have been a normal 7-iron swing for Ian, right?
That's way too
for
high.
him, that'd be a little high.
Yeah.
If we were swinging a little softer or a little slower, going up to 21 degrees, that's kind of the ceiling in terms of what I'd want to see. Don't really want to see much more than that. Typically, I like to see something around 17, 18 for most golfers. 16 for Ian's actually pretty good.
Yes.
Technically, it can get lower than that, and then I yell at him.
Well, I like to hit down on it, you know.
I know. I yell at him all the time. He needs
But
help, guys. He
spin
has a
rate.
problem.
Let's go into that one because that's really good.
Spin rate
For my new
is...
clubs.
Yes, it is. Spin rate is an aerodynamic coefficient, essentially. In terms of spin rate, right, it's a measure essentially and effectively of aerodynamic coefficient of the golf ball, right?
Yes.
And the analogy that I always kind of use is go back to kind of when you were kids, right? Go to the beach, your parents blow up that colorful beach volleyball thing, right? You toss it up into the air and it just floats, right? That's effectively what a golf ball does if it is spinning too much. When a golf ball spins through the air from an aerodynamics perspective, it actually grows quite a bit in surface area, okay? And if there's too much surface area, what happens is we actually start to lose potential lift. When we lose potential lift, that ball has to fight harder to get through the air, and then it stalls, and when it stalls, it just floats,
Yes.
right? If a golf ball doesn't have enough spin, kind of like what that just was, right?
Yeah.
Now, he did that on purpose
Yeah.
to show kind of what this is. It's a lot like a knuckleball, right? It's going to just kind of fall out of the air. Typically for a righty, it's going to fall out of the air left, vice versa if you're a lefty. But it doesn't have enough aerodynamic coefficient or surface area to actually create said lift that is needed, right?
And it'll fly lower.
It'll fly lower,
Less spin.
and like I
just keep
said,
rolling.
it'll hit the ground and never stop, basically.
Unless it hits rough.
And even then, it might not, depending on what the speed is, because we've seen that happen. So yeah, spin's another very, very important one. And when we're talking about that, right, it's super important to realize that there's a range. That range isn't just affected by essentially, it's not just affected by the type of, or the number of club that you're hitting or the loft of the club, but also by the category of the club, right? A player's cavity back club or a player's blade club typically is going to spin a little higher, has a little bit of a higher range, right? A player's distance or a super game improvement iron, it's going to spin a little bit less. That's done so by design, right? That's how you retain a little bit more ball speed. Club that's more forgiving is going to retain a little more ball speed, have a higher smash factor, spin a little bit less.
I try to increase the spin on that one just to show the smash factor went down.
Yep. Smash factor goes down, spin rate goes up because
Ball goes higher.
that ball had to fight to get through the air a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it went higher and landed softer.
Yeah.
You know?
And then spin axis is basic.
Spin axis is effectively showing which way the ball is going to kind of curve, if you will, right? And it's, again, based on what that delivery is, right? Golf balls only spin in one direction, but the axis of the window that that ball is actually spinning, that can determine whether or not we're a draw or a cut.
And that's a very high spin axis right there.
Whatever Ian just did, because I don't know
I was trying to get it up there.
Well, it's up there.
I'm gonna start shaping shots because apparently I hit it on the target line more often. Anyways.
More accurate. We're trying to hit rope slices.
Yeah, apparently. All right, let's do what's the next characteristic?
Next one's going to be
Flight characteristics. All right, flight. So curve. Obviously, I try to hit a big old rope draw. Or
that was a slice. That was just a big old
for
slice.
a 7-iron, that was a slice.
For you, that's a slice.
So my understanding of curve is the ball started on a line and it curved 94 feet right.
Total movement.
Total movement in the air.
So flight on Trackman's movement, when it measures curve, I should say, it's measuring total movement of that ball flight, yes.
So if we hit it straight, hopefully.
Should have slightly less total movement.
Oh my God, I need to do this more often.
You actually almost just hit a straight one.
I did, look at that. Look at that club path.
It's pretty good, man.
Look at that club path. Oh, 5 feet.
5 feet.
Darn it. Call me Scheffler.
It's not bad though. Actually, this is a really good shot to look at for the rest of these two because it speaks essentially exactly to what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So we saw the curve. We saw how it was adjusted, right?
Yes.
That ball, for all intents and purposes, was arrow straight.
Yes.
Right?
Because I can get it.
Peak height, very important. This is another one that in a fitter's going to really kind of lock in on for you. Peak height, couple things. For a properly fit set of clubs, should actually be pretty equivalent across the whole set.
Yes.
Right?
You mean saying the pitching wedge should be the same as the 5-iron?
Yeah, right?
They
just have a different really descent angle, right? That's the main difference. We already talked about, well, we haven't talked about landing angle. We'll get to that. But peak height is next to launch angle, that kind of first number that's going to be a really telltale of, are we hitting this club efficiently and properly for the golfer, right? It starts to tell a story, really, and it paints a picture of what the golfer can do. In this case, Ian really does hit all of his clubs around 120 feet across the board on a full swing.
Without
obviously,
driver. Not my driver.
You can though. Like I've seen it, right? You try to do something different with your driver, but you can get your driver up to 115, 120 pretty easily.
I can get it up to 150 if we're talking, but let's continue.
We've done that. We did that video. But yeah, peak height, very important. And
especially
something
for irons.
Well, irons, wedges, fairway woods, everything, right? It really is a number that is very important because it starts to, again, tell that overarching picture of if a golf set is really working for the player. Peak height is directly correlated to another number that's incredibly important, being carry, right? Now, here's where we're actually going to start to talk about some stuff that I quite like to do in fittings as well, which is talk about standard deviations. Carry is just a flat-out measurement of how far the ball went, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we have a bunch of different shots in here, hitting a bunch of different types of shots. So in this instance, our standard deviation number, which is down at the bottom here, plus or minus 26.7, that's not going to read very well. But typically, if we were doing a fitting, I would want to see that with an iron, typically within 5 yards, right? Yeah. Plus or minus 5 yards. That tells me that
I'm just messing around here.
Exactly, yeah. Like this isn't a real test of that. But that tells us that when you pull this club out, right, more often than not, you're going to be able to hit your intended yardage and intended target.
Plus or minus 5.
Exactly, plus or minus 5 yards, which over an average of 10 shots, it's not very much, right? Yeah. That's really good, right? And that's important. Something that you've probably noticed after getting fit all these times, right? You kind of start to really know what your yardages are.
This is the only number I focus on the most.
Yeah, it's the most important number.
Yeah.
Knowing how far you have to hit the ball changes the way you play golf.
It's
having a true and trusted club that gets you to that yardage changes the way you swing the club, man.
Even on a slight miss hit.
Yeah,
you gotta know.
And that's just it. Even when you slightly miss it, as long as our standard deviations from a well-fit club are good, you should be good.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like you pull out whatever iron you hit to cover the water on 175, unless you really, really tank it. You should cover that water at 175, right? Total, that's just, what the ball's going to do after it hits the ground.
Is it fairway? Is it on fairway or is it on green?
Technically, this is set currently to fairway.
Okay, that's fine.
But again, that's why we don't typically use this one all that much.
Unless it's a driver.
Exactly. Yeah. I care more about carry than I do total. Yeah. Because once the ball hits the ground, it's unpredictable, realistically. That number can change.
Depending on where you play. And
exactly. Now, most fitters are going to set their Trackman units to pretty much standard elevations for the area that they are in. Obviously, that's important when looking at something like that if you want to look at that. But I personally just take it out of the equation because, like I said, it's not predictable. It's not a very truthful number, let's say.
Cool. Can you switch to tracer, do side top on the left? So landing angle
Landing angle is the most important number
with irons.
with every club.
Oh.
Every single club. Because landing angle tells us if the flight is efficient. I don't care about spin. I don't care about ball speed. I don't care about most other things. I care about if you hit a golf shot, will it do what it is supposed to do? Okay? You just hit a 7-iron that has a landing angle of 26.5 degrees.
Yeah.
That is horrible.
Correct.
It's really bad, right? It's never ever gonna stop.
Correct.
Right? With an iron, right? I am actually looking for something in the realm of 45 to 47 degrees.
And that depends on swing speed.
Well, it's a window of variation, right? That is considered perfect. That one was 52.6. That's a bit high.
Yes.
Now, again,
but I tried to make it.
doing that on purpose to show the differences. Depending on what your delivery can be, I'll say, landing angle can shift a little bit, right?
Yes.
There's always going to be some gray room when we're doing this. Not everybody is perfect. Trust me. I have to work with this guy, and he just did that. So it's going to have some variation, obviously, right? But good benchmarks, when you're doing irons especially, just about everybody should be able to get to around 40 degrees, right?
Yes.
Obviously, I'd like to get a little bit more, but around 40, that's kind of like a good target to start with. If we're hitting a driver, for example, a really good and efficient landing angle is going to be somewhere between 30 and 37.
Yes.
Right?
Well, those 7-iron, 47 is good.
47 is perfect for a 7-iron. 30 to 37 with a driver means that you are going to get maximized carry as well as maximized roll.
Yes.
40, kind of 4 to 45, 46, those numbers, that means you're going to get maximized carry with the
minimal roll.
Quickest stop possible.
Yes.
Right? Landing angle has more to do with stopping power on the other end versus anything else, right? I don't care too much about what a golf ball's doing from a spin perspective, as long as we're in that range that's acceptable for that style of club, as long as we have landing angle. For example, if a golf ball is spinning at 5,000 and it's off a game improvement 7-iron, but it has a 51 degree landing angle,
that's fine.
It's going to stop, right?
Yeah.
Even though most people would say you want 7,000 on a 7-iron, that's really not that true, right? So landing angle, by far, the most important number to look at in a fitting with every single club that you use. The only other number that I would say is as important as that number is when you're doing a wedge fitting, and then you really have to focus on the launch angle as well.
Yeah.
What's next, Mr. Ian?
Hang time's the last one.
Hang time's just a fun one we use specifically for guys like Ian because he hits the ball too high because he's a psycho. Let's play with hang time real quick. So what hang time actually is effectively
the amount of time
the ball stays in the air effectively, right?
So for 6.7, I have
6.7 with a 7-iron, that's pretty standard for a guy who swings as fast as Ian does.
And what about a 7-wood?
This is going to be funny. I don't even know what that's going to say. It's going to just say it's defying laws of gravity.
I don't know. That went up and then it went down.
It's physics. I literally have 8.2.
8.2, that's not bad.
I have no idea what that means.
200 feet, pretty good.
That was a very silly golf shot. You shouldn't really have 61. You actually backed it up a yard on the fairway with a 7-wood. That's pretty good. I don't know. I want to see some more numbers on that shot. Hold on.
You want to do what?
I want to see some more numbers on this shot.
You saw the spin rate.
So 6,758 spin.
I can get more.
You hit up on it, 1.8 degrees. I mean, all intents and purposes, that was a great 7-iron, man.
Thank you.
That was a really good 7-iron.
I'll tell you what, that'll stop at Oakmont that next year.
That'll stop every single golf hole ever made. I don't think you can make a green that won't hold.
This is how I'm going to play Oakmont if I get in. I'm just going to lay it up to 215?
215, that's your number. That ball came down like frozen.
I know.
Yeah, that's the rain bringer right there.
Yeah.
That was impressive.
Thank you. All right, now the last part.
Can we get 9?
9 what?
I'm curious now, hang time.
Oh, 9? Now you're going to challenge me.
I'm just curious. I want to see. Let's maximize hang time. I'm going to start fitting for hang time. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to fit.
Dude, that's still in here. Wow.
It's not even going to read that because you launched it too high. 8.43. That's hilarious.
It's still up there though.
And if you ever have to get over like a 200-year-old like redwood,
you use the 7-wood off.
You just need the 7-wood off a T, man.
Ooh, 206 we got to.
Yep. Don't try this at home, kids.
Please don't. It hurts.
220.
Darn it. God, we got 3 yards of backspin.
It doesn't even look like a real golf shot. That is funky. Hopefully you guys found this interesting. We wanted to paint a picture of essentially kind of what this looks like and what I'm looking for when I'm doing a fitting. These questions come up all the time, so figure it's a good window into kind of how I look at stuff. If you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for liking and subscribing. And let us know if you have any other kind of videos like this that you'd like to see down in the comments. We'll shoot them for you. So have a good one. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.